What happens when a single strike changes the course of history overnight? 2 lives were lost, and now the sky is filling with steel wings ready for war. If you believe the truth matters more than the headlines, please hit the like button right now, subscribe to join our community of critical thinkers, and share this video with someone who needs to understand what is really happening behind the scenes. The silence that follows an explosion is often louder than the blast itself. In the remote sands of Jordan, that silence fell heavy over a base known as Tower 22. It was supposed to be a routine night for the American service members stationed there. They were far from home, watching the horizons, ensuring stability in a region that has known nothing but instability for decades. But routine is a fragile thing in the Middle East. It can shatter in the blink of an eye. A single drone launched from the shadows by forces linked to Iran pierced the night sky. It was not a warning shot. It was not a mistake. It was a deliberate strike aimed at the heart of the American presence. When the smoke cleared, the reality was devastating. 2 American soldiers were dead. Their names were soon released to the public, turning them from statistics into sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters. They were real people with futures that were stolen in an instant. Alongside them, several others were injured, some critically, carrying wounds that would heal physically but might never heal mentally. This was not just an attack on a building or a position. It was an attack on the people who stood guard there. When news of the casualties reached Washington, the mood shifted instantly from caution to urgency. In politics and war, there are lines that, once crossed, demand a response. The loss of American troops on foreign soil is one of those lines. It changes the calculus completely. Before this event, there was a careful dance of diplomacy and limited strikes. There was a hope, however faint, that tensions could be managed without spiraling into a full-scale conflict. But death changes everything. Grief demands action. The leadership in the Pentagon and the White House knew that silence would be interpreted as weakness. In the geopolitical arena, weakness is an invitation for further aggression. So the decision was made to respond, and to respond with force. This was not about revenge in an emotional sense. It was about sending a clear message to Iran and its proxy groups that there is a cost for crossing certain boundaries. The message needed to be loud, precise, and undeniable. Within hours of the attack, the United States launched a wave of strikes against targets linked to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and affiliated militias. These were not random bombs dropped on empty land. They were targeted hits designed to degrade the ability of these groups to launch similar attacks. The goal was to disrupt command centers, destroy weapon stockpiles, and hit logistics chains. But military action is rarely a single event. It is a chain reaction. You strike, they feel the pressure, and then they look for a way to push back. This is the dangerous cycle that experts worry about. It is a tit-for-tat dynamic where each side tries to outmaneuver the other, and the stakes get higher with every move. The strikes were intended to be the end of the matter, a definitive statement saying, "We see you, and we will hit you back." But in this region, nothing is ever truly finished. The smoke from the strikes had barely settled when new reports began to surface. The United States was not just striking back. It was building up. The Pentagon announced that it was expediting the movement of additional fighter jets. This is a specific military term that means speeding up a process that usually takes time. Moving warplanes across the world is a logistical nightmare. It requires coordination and fuel. When you expedite something, you cut through the red tape. You prioritize speed over comfort. You tell the pilots and the crews that time is of the essence. This tells us something critical. They are not preparing for a return to normalcy. They are preparing for the possibility that the situation is about to get worse before it gets better. Sending more planes is not just about having more firepower. It is about having options and the ability to respond. It is about dominance in the sky, ensuring no drone or missile can fly unchecked. This buildup is a shield, but it is also a sword. It shows readiness and escalation. As we dive deeper into why this buildup is happening, consider the complexity of the region. We are not talking about a simple border dispute. We are talking about a web of alliances. Proxy groups and economic interests span the entire globe. The Middle East is the engine room. Any disruption here sends shockwaves to every gas station and every factory around the planet. When the U.S. moves assets into this region, the world watches. Allies feel reassured. Adversaries feel threatened. This dynamic creates a pressure cooker environment. One spark can cause an explosion that no one wants. The decision to send more planes was likely made with the knowledge that it might provoke a reaction from Iran. So why do it? The answer lies in the concept of deterrence. If you show enough strength, the other side will decide that attacking you is too costly. They will back down. But deterrence only works if the other side believes you are willing to use that strength. Both sides are testing limits. If you are finding this analysis helpful and want to stay updated on hidden layers of conflict, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications to never miss a breakdown. Your support helps us continue digging deeper into the truth. The movement of these planes is happening against a backdrop of naval tension as well. It is not just about the sky. It is about the sea. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway connecting the Persian Gulf. It is one of the most critical choke points on Earth. Nearly 1/3 of the world's oil passes through this narrow stretch of water every single day. If this route were blocked, the global economy would suffer immediate and severe consequences. Prices would skyrocket. Supply chains would break. This is why the U.S. Navy is constantly patrolling these waters. They are there to ensure freedom of navigation, but Iran has threatened to close the strait. They have the capability to mine the water or use anti-ship missiles to make passage dangerous. Recent U.S. strikes included targets specifically aimed at reducing this threat. The goal was to weaken Iran's ability to interfere with shipping traffic. This is defensive, but it looks like an offensive move to the other side. Iran views any restriction as aggression. They argue that they have a right to protect their sovereignty. The U.S. argues for open waters. This disagreement is as old as the conflict itself, but now it is played out with ammunition. When we look at the strategy from Iran's perspective, we see a different picture. They do not view themselves as the aggressors. They view themselves as defenders. Their leadership speaks to their own people about resisting foreign pressure. When the U.S. strikes militias, Iran sees it as an attack on its regional influence. They rely on these groups to project power without using their own regular army. This is a strategy of asymmetric warfare. It allows them to fight without declaring war. It gives them plausible deniability. They can say they did not fire that missile. This makes it very hard for the U.S. to respond directly against Iran without escalation. But the death of the American soldiers changed this dynamic. It made the relationship harder to ignore. You cannot say a group is independent when they are killing troops with supplied weapons. The line between the proxy and the patron becomes blurred. This is why the U.S. strikes targeted Iranian command structures directly. They were trying to pierce the veil of deniability. They were saying, we know who is pulling the strings. This brings us to a deeper goal. It is not just about ships or soldiers. It is about the nuclear question. The United States has stated clearly that it will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. This is a red line drawn by multiple administrations. The fear is a destabilized region. It would trigger an arms race with Saudi Arabia and other neighbors. It gives Iran a shield. The current conflict is happening in the shadow of this larger issue. Every strike is influenced. The U.S. wants to pressure Iran into negotiations that limit their nuclear program. Iran wants to lift sanctions and gain economic relief. They use regional influence as leverage. They show that they can cause pain if their demands are not met. Death gave a new reason. It allowed them to frame military action as necessary for security. But this creates a dilemma. How much pressure is too much? If you push too hard, they might accelerate nuclear work. If you push too little, they might feel emboldened. Finding the balance is incredibly difficult. The structure of Iran's military and political system adds another layer of complexity. Unlike a standard army, Iran's power is spread out. Experts call it a decentralized network. There are multiple groups, multiple commanders, and multiple decision-makers involved. This makes it very hard to defeat them with airstrikes alone. You can bomb a building, but you cannot bomb an idea. You can kill a commander, but another will take their place. The system is designed to survive pressure. It is built to absorb shocks and function. This is why military planners are cautious. They know bombing will not solve the problem. It might degrade capabilities, but it will not remove the threat entirely. This is frustrating. We see the planes taking off and explosions on the news, but underlying tension remains. The conflict does not end with a single battle. It grinds on and becomes part of the landscape. This is why the movement of planes is significant. It signals a long-term commitment. It says we are not leaving. We need to pause and acknowledge the human element. If this video opened your eyes, please share it with a friend or family member. Spreading awareness is the first step toward demanding better solutions from leaders. Behind every statistic and military maneuver, there are real human beings. There are the families of the 2 soldiers who were killed. They are waiting for answers. They are dealing with grief that no parent or spouse should ever have to endure. They sent loved ones to serve and received a flag draped over a casket in return. Their loss is the catalyst for all this activity. Without their deaths, planes might not fly. Without their sacrifice, the strikes might not have happened. Remember their names. Policy is made in blood. Then there are the soldiers still on the ground on high alert. They know their targets, and another drone could come at any moment. This takes a toll. The stress of constant vigilance is exhausting. They are far from their families and homes. They are the ones who pay the price for decisions made in air-conditioned offices. And we cannot forget the people of the Middle East who live in these conflict zones. They are not soldiers. They are civilians, trying to raise children and run businesses. They suffer most when tensions rise. Their economies suffer and safety is compromised. They are collateral damage of a struggle that they did not start. Where does it end? History shows that conflicts in this region rarely have clean endings. They fade out. They simmer down and turn into cold wars that last for decades. No clear path to peace. Both sides are locked in a struggle where backing down is seen as losing face. For the US, losing face means looking weak to allies. For Iran, it means looking incapable. This creates a trap. Neither side wants to step back, so they continue to step forward. The risk is that a miscalculation could lead to something much bigger and more dangerous. Military planners are trying to manage escalation while still achieving their goals. We must also consider the domestic impact. Wars are expensive and cost billions of dollars. The public appetite for long conflicts is low. People are tired of endless wars. When soldiers come home in body bags, the public asks hard questions and demands answers. This puts pressure on the government to show results, but results are hard to define. What does victory look like? Is it destruction of launchers or a signed treaty? The lack of definition makes it hard to know when the job is done. Ambiguity drags on. Diplomats are talking behind the scenes through channels like Switzerland or Oman. These channels are vital for preventing accidental war, but they depend on trust. There is very little trust. Recent attacks have strained those fragile channels of talk. It is harder to negotiate when you're bombing each other's allies. Diplomacy is the way. Force can create conditions for talk, but it cannot replace it. Words build the peace. The world is watching to see if the diplomats can catch up to the generals. Can they de-escalate before the next tragedy? Allies of the US are concerned for stability. They rely on the oil and the security of the American presence, but fear being dragged in. Some call for restraint, while others support a strong response to stop aggression. This split makes it harder to form a united front. Uncertainty is the only certainty. The situation is fluid and changing by the hour. Warplanes mean readiness for scenarios. Readiness does not guarantee safety. More weapons can increase the risk of accident. The more assets in the air, the higher the chance of a mistake. This is the paradox. Leaders are walking a tightrope, trying to show strength without triggering a catastrophe. The death of these soldiers ripples outwards, affecting policy and stability across the world. Everything is connected. We must pay attention and hold leaders accountable for life. The sky is crowded, the engines are loud, and the tension is palpable everywhere. We hope wisdom guides the hands on the controls, and sacrifice is not in vain. We hope this moment becomes a turning point towards stability for everyone involved. The future is unwritten. It is being written right now by actions in these critical days, and we are all witnesses to history being made.